Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for November 27th, 2017. On today's show, we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of news, including the Ladybird's record-breaking reviews. The future of Avatar sequels might be in doubt. The first Jumanji reviews have hit the web. A Zack Snyder cut of Justice League probably doesn't exist. Why Quentin Tarantino doesn't like Netflix. Avengers 4 and 20 years of Marvel movies are planned. And Rian Johnson's new Star Wars trilogy. And because we haven't had an episode in almost a week, we're going to be stopping by the water cooler to talk about a bunch of, movies and things we've done during this Thanksgiving holiday. I'm Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film writer Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And also joining us is Slash Film's other writer, Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Guys, it was a good Thanksgiving holiday. I ate a lot. I'm not sure about you guys. Did you have yourself a feast this Thanksgiving?
Yes. I had a big family party with about 40 of my cousins on my dad's side, and we all chipped in to make dinner. So I was tasked with making mashed potatoes, 15 pounds worth. That was really exciting.
40 people?
Yeah. Well, about 20 cousins and then some aunts and uncles and significant others. But yeah, I have a big family. My dad has 7 siblings, all of whom are older than him. So
I don't want to bore our audience who's here to talk about movies or listen to movie talk and TV talk, but how do you accommodate, how do you seat 40 people for a meal like
well,
this?
we basically do like a big potluck, and it's kind of buffet style, and often it'd be at my uncle's house, which is pretty large, and sometimes a lot of us would end up just sitting on the floor around the TV table or something. So we make room.
I did the opposite, where it was literally just me and my wife, and that was it. We just did a low key Thanksgiving home, the two of us, and that was it. It was nice and quiet.
Yeah, I had something in the middle. I had a Friendsgiving, had a bunch of friends over. We had a honey baked ham. We had some stuffing. I love my stuffing and Thanksgiving, and it was good. I got to see a lot of good movies since the last time I talked to you guys, because it's Oscar season's coming up. I'm in a critic circle, so there's sending me screeners. I'm getting early screening invites to these big movies. I got to see Molly's Game, the directorial debut of Aaron Sorkin. Have either of you seen this film yet?
I have. I saw it at TIFF. Jessica Chastain is great in it. I like Sorkin's writing. I think he's a better writer than he is a director. The direction wasn't as exciting as the script. That's what I personally thought.
Oh, I agree. I think Molly's Game, it's like a female Goodfellas set in the world of underground high stakes poker games. It is, it has his signature dialogue. Jessica Chastain is fantastic in that lead title role. I'm not sure I would trust Sorkin to do anything more actiony than people sitting around talking in rooms, and thankfully I would say 95% of this film is that, but when it is not that, you can tell he's not good at that kind of stuff. It does feel a bit long at 140 minutes, and I feel like this is a very good film, but I feel like there's a great film in there if he could have found 20 minutes to cut, but I'm not an editor, so what am I to say with that? I also saw Ladybird, which is in the running for one of my favorite films of the year. I loved it. I didn't really know much about it going into it. Obviously, I've seen Greta's other work, but this is her solo directorial debut, and it's hilarious, it's smart, it's honest, it's emotional, it's the kind of film that I went 10 years ago, I'd go to Sundance seeking out. It's, a coming-of-age drama. By the way, it's kind of scary that we're now doing period films set in the early 2000s. that makes me feel really old. But yeah, it's I think we're going to look back on this film as the debut of a brilliant new filmmaker, and I highly recommend anybody listening to this to go out and seek out this film, Ladybird. It's incredible. Another thing I saw this past week is The Florida Project, which is Sean Baker's next movie. He was the guy that did Tangerine. Florida Project is set in Florida outside of Disney's Magic Kingdom, and it kind of is set, it's interesting. If you ever go on vacation to like Disney World or Disneyland, you see like these kind of like sad touristy kind of like hotels and areas outside of like the official ones. And you always wonder like, who are the people that, go to these places, and not just people that go to these places, but like when you go to like, you go to a summer retreat, like a vacation area, like, I'm trying to think of a good example here, but like, where the town booms during the summer, and you're wondering like, who are the people that live here during the rest of the year? And I feel like this movie is kind of like about those people. It's, a lower class family, that is, it isn't a wonderful life, but it's the great thing about this film is it's told from the point of view of the children, and you get to see dramatic, serious things happening with the adults, but it's always from the eyes of the children, so it's maybe not always as dramatic as it should be, and it's just, I don't know, it's also up there in my favorite films of the year. It's has a very emotional gut punch. It's, I don't know, a lot of times with children actors, you get really bad performances, especially when you have independent film with children actors where they don't have the cream of the crop. And this film has some wonderful performances from the children actors, and I'm sure we'll see a future with them. And lastly, actually not lastly, I also saw Paul Thomas Anderson's The Phantom Thread, but I am embargoed from just giving you any reaction or opinion on that movie. But I got to see a Q&A with him in the cast, which the Q&A was wonderful. I can say that much. And lastly, I saw the season finale of Nathan For You. Are either of you fans of the TV series Nathan For You?
I've never seen the show.
What?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I've never seen it either, actually.
Oh my god! You guys got to get on this. It's quickly become one of my favorite TV shows. If you don't know what Nathan For You is, it's on Comedy Central. It follows Nathan Fielder, who plays a guy who has graduated from a top business school, and it's kind of like a parody, it started off as a parody of those kind of reality shows where someone comes in to fix a business with crazy ideas and stuff like that. And it's, and that sounds like such a horrible pitch for a TV show. That sounds like something I wouldn't want to watch, but it's so hilarious. It's so wonderful. Season 4 just aired, and the final episode of season 4, which I would not recommend for you guys to watch as your first episode because it has a lot of stuff that is kind of built into it from previous episodes, if that makes sense, even though most episodes are very episodic. It's wonderful. It's almost like it's a feature length. It's almost like an independent, reminds me of like Sideways, or it feels like an independent film. It's great. I loved it. I ran into Nathan at the Magic Castle on Friday and said nothing because I was shy. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. HT, what have you been doing?
So in the spirit of Thanksgiving and my very large family, I went to see another very large family on the big screen, which was Coco. That was a really touching movie to watch with a lot of my cousins, just because it tapped into a lot of the Vietnamese American culture that I kind of celebrate every day, especially in terms of like ancestral worship. I wrote a piece about this for slashfilm.com actually last week. It kind of got hidden during the Thanksgiving holiday festivities, but I'm really proud of this piece. And I think that Coco is just a great universal story, despite it being so embedded in like Mexican culture and Mexican communities. So this was a movie that I really appreciated seeing with my cousins and family, and which caused all of my cousins to cry at the end and promised to pay more attention and to try to preserve our culture a little more. So that was really nice. And then after that, I spent the weekend going to this true crime sort of exhibit at the Renwick Gallery in Washington, D.C. So this is an exhibit called Murder is Her Hobby, the Frances Glessner Lee and the Nutshell Studies of Unexplained Deaths. So this is a really morbid and macabre sort of exhibit that consists of several dollhouse dioramas made by this woman in the 1940s, Frances Glessner Lee. And she meticulously crafted and replicated several crime scenes of either accidents or real murders. And they're extremely detailed. Like you can see when there is a gunshot wound, for example, she paints the blood splatter perfectly to a T. And there's a lot of hangings, which is really sad, but they take place like in the 40s and 50s, which is when she made them. And they've been used actually at Harvard University for the forensics department as a way of teaching students how to sort of spot clues and handle crime scenes. So it's really fascinating. Like the exhibit is really cool because they give you little flashlights and you can kind of go in and try to spot all the clues yourself or solve or try to guess whatever case happened.
How big are these dioramas?
They're really small. They're I don't know how exactly the dimensions are, but they're like the dolls are about the size of like your hand, for example, and they're like basically the kind of dollhouse that you would find at in a kid's playroom, like really small and really small pieces. So it's amazing like how much detail goes into it. So it's a really cool exhibit and very kind of a little bit disheartening after you leave it because you're like, wow, there's a lot of just murder in the world. And there was one that was very brutal with like I think it was like a murder-suicide of this family with a baby. So that was a big turnaround from watching Coco the day before.
So is there like blood all over the walls and stuff?
A lot of them were just like hangings or like accidents that were unexplained. Like there was one that was a closed room case in which there was a woman who was found in her kitchen with all the windows closed, but like, and the doors locked, but she was just lying dead on the floor without explanation. But there are some that was like, had like blood splatters and blood puddles painted onto the floor and stuff. And you can see it like on the wall and randomly like on the pillows and everything. So yeah, definitely has every gory detail.
Interesting. Chris, you haven't been in the multiplexes this weekend. You were in front of your TV. What were you watching?
Right. So I was catching up on some screeners from Netflix. I watched all of the new season of Black Mirror, which I can't say anything about because it's still embargoed. But I also watched all
Chris,
of the...
just wink at me if it was good. I don't know why I said that because I can't see you. But okay, go ahead.
But I also watched The Crown Season 2, which I can talk about because that embargo is lifted. And it was very good. I actually liked it better than the first season. For anyone who doesn't know, The Crown is focused on the life of Queen Elizabeth II. And it's like sort of like a behind the scenes drama of her life as the monarch. And it's good. One of the reasons I like it so much is it's one of the few Netflix shows that's actually episodic in that it's not like a 9-hour movie, or as most Netflix shows feel like they're like 9-hour movies stretched over 9 episodes. This series is very much committed to just telling individual stories per episode, sort of like how Mad Men handled episodes. So that's one of the things I liked about it.
Only 2 things that you've been doing over the holiday?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I also
that is a lot of hours of television, but
it's like 15 hours. That's a lot. So.
And you caught up on some screeners as well?
Not yet. I've been getting a lot because I too am in a critics group, but I haven't had a chance to watch any of them yet. So hopefully this week I'll catch up with them.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting. I'm not sure if people know this, but like when you're in a critics group, you got to vote on year-end awards in early December. which means that you have to see all these films that people usually see, in December and January. You have to see it, before, much, much earlier. So it's a lot of pressure to see the films that you at least think are in the running for like, the best of the year awards. You can't see everything, but yeah. But moving on, let's dive into the news. Ladybird, a film I was just talking about, has now become the best reviewed movie of all time on Rotten Tomatoes. HT, what do we know?
So Lady Bird has edged out Toy Story 2 for the movie with the most reviews to hold a 100% tomato meter score on Rotten Tomatoes. So Lady Bird has 169 fresh reviews and 0 rotten reviews on the review aggregator's website, whereas Toy Story 2 used to hold the record with 163 reviews. So this puts Lady Bird in a elite club of only a few other films that have been able to achieve a 100% score with over 100 reviews. And that includes 2016's Things to Come, which was, I think, a French film starring Isabelle Huppert. Man on Wire from 2008, which had 157 reviews, and Toy Story 2, which had 163 reviews. Oh, and Things to Come had 128 reviews. So this is a really great achievement for Lady Bird, which is the directorial debut of Greta Gerwig, and is just a phenomenal movie. It's so touching and personal, and is a wonderful slice of life / coming of age film that I think adds a nice female perspective to the sort of catalog of coming of age films we've had. And I like that it, along with films like Edge of 17 and Secret Diary of a Teenage Girl, are adding more female films to this sort of often male-oriented coming-of-age genre.
For sure. And I'm obviously a big fan of this film, but we should note that Rotten Tomatoes is a percentage of the critics that like the film versus not like the film. So you hear these films like Man on Wire or Toy Story 2. These are films that critics kind of universally agree that they liked. It doesn't mean that those grouping of films were better than all other films.
Yes, it should be noted that the average critic rating for Lady Bird is 8.9 out of 10. So that doesn't mean every critic gave it a 10 out of 10, but it's just got 100% fresh or positive reviews.
Yes, 8.4 out of 10 is still exceptional.
8.9.
Or 8.9 out of 10 is exceptional. And yes, like I said before, go see it. If it's playing anywhere within an hour drive of you should make that drive. Use MoviePass if you have to. We also in the news, James Cameron's out promoting a bunch of stuff, and he has done some interviews, one of which he revealed the details of Kate Winslet's character and admitted that Avatar 4 and 5 are not actually guaranteed movies that are going to happen. This is surprising. So, Chris, what do we know?
Right. So in their interview, James Cameron reveals that Kate Winslet is playing a member of the Sea People, he calls her. They're doing a bunch of motion capture footage shot actually underwater, and apparently she's playing, I guess, the leader of the people who live under the water on Pandora, the planet where Avatar is set. And then he also goes on to say, interestingly enough, that while Avatar 2 and 3 are definitely happening and they're being shot back to back right now, Avatar 4 and 5 are not a done deal. Basically what he says is, if no one goes to see Avatar 2 and 3, there's not going to be a 4 and 5, which is pretty much like common sense. That's how movies work. But it kind of seems like that's unlikely to happen. It seems like if they're going to commit to these movies, that 2 and 3 will make enough money to make 4 and 5.
Yeah, I think it's just surprising because before he has said that they were going to shoot all 4 films? 4 films?
Yeah, 4.
4 films at the same time, and now it seems that he's only doing that with the 2 and 3.
Yeah. Originally, he did say that instead of shooting them, not even back to back, it's literally going to be one huge production. But Apparently, he only meant for 2 and 3, not 4 and 5.
Yeah. For the past couple of months, he's been saying that he's just shooting 2 and 3 back to back, whereas 4 and 5 will be kept on the back burner. But yeah, this is news that the fate of 4 and 5 are kind of up in the air.
So it's been reported that the production budget for these sequels is $1 billion. So that is what, 1 billion divided by 4 films. So that's 250,000 or 250 million each film, right? My math's correct. So what I'm wondering is if they're making these next 2 films for $500 million, how badly would they have to do for 4 and 5 not to happen? I guess
Justice League numbers.
Yeah, Justice League numbers, and that is what, like, it's probably going to end up 600, 700 million, something like that. But what's the chances that Avatar 2 and 3 are going to do that badly? I mean, the first one did what? Billions of dollars.
I guess it kind of depends on how Avatar 2 does, really. I feel like if Avatar 2 ends up being not good, I guess, I could see the buzz sort of dying off and people not bothering to see 3, but, who knows?
Let's say that Avatar 2 does half the amount of money that Avatar 1 did. Then it would do $1.5 billion. You know, and Avatar 3 does half of that. It will do, what is that, $700 or $800 million or something like that? I can't even see, like, so if they have each other, it still seems to me that Avatar 4 and 5 are still going to happen. But I don't know. Let's move on from James Cameron to Jumanji. This is a film I saw a few weeks ago. The embargo has now broken, and people are sharing their thoughts. Some select press are sharing their thoughts about their early social media thoughts on this film. I don't think there's actually reviews that are up yet. I'll just share my thoughts before we get to HT rounding up what other people have said. But, I was not expecting to like this film. I was kind of shocked that they were showing it to me so early. So I went to the screening, not expecting much. And I want to say that, first of all, I'm not a huge fan of the original Jumanji. It holds a place in my heart, but it's not like a great film. This film is a lot of fun. It's silly, it's cheesy, but it's fun. And it's, I think, what it does for the concept of a video game movie, and I know this isn't based on a video game. The original Jumanji is based on a non-existing board game. But I think the way that this does things with people playing characters inside a video game and the body swapping thing, it's just a lot of fun, and I think this movie is going to kill with the family crowd. HT, what did other people think? I haven't even looked at the responses from other people. Did people like it? Yeah,
you share with the other reactions a general sense of pleasant surprise. Most people really liked it. They say it's a fun, funny film, a good family-friendly outing, and they praise Jack Black and Dwayne Johnson particularly for the body swap comedy that they engage in. And they say that it's not too steeped in nostalgia, which I think was the big fear because Jumanji is so heavily associated with Robin Williams' performance, and that's a huge burden because of Robin Williams' passing. But they make a slight nod to it, I'm assuming, and but it's more of an original take, an original twist on the story, which is about it being a video game and a body swap comedy and all these young kids who are stuck in adult bodies. And that's the general gist, a good comedy adventure film.
I'm wondering what people are going to think of it that love Jumanji, because I'm not sure that this is it is a Jumanji movie, but it really seems like the screenwriters involved here probably came up with the idea of, like, what would it be like if these, the Breakfast Club kids were sucked into a video game together. And I know that sounds like such a nonsense concept, but it's done in such a fun and clever way at times, and the body swap stuff is so good. So it's not going to blow people away. I'm not saying that, but I would honestly put it up there with the best video game movies of all time, which I would, movies on the line of like King of Kong, Scott Pilgrim, Wreck-It Ralph, Edge of Tomorrow, and this film, all of which are not video game adaptations, because I would say it's better than any video game adaptation. But I would say it's, with those other films, it's, those other films might be, are above this, but this film is a very good film. It's a very, very enjoyable film.
I have a question for you, Peter.
Yeah.
The arc that Jack Black's character has is just like of the typical sort of hot chick in like an overweight man's body, and it's something that's kind of a tired concept that we've seen before with like the hot chick. Is it done well and like cleverly in Jumanji?
I'm not going to say it's done cleverly, but it is also, it's not just a hot chick in a fat guy's body. It's, millennial selfie taking girl. Oh no, it's playing on a bunch of stuff. This isn't a movie that you're going to want to go do for something very smart and clever. This is a broad kind of comedy, but I was pleasantly surprised throughout at things that it was doing, and even like how it play, especially how it plays with video games. I think is a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm wondering what your thoughts will be on that whole thing. It's not particularly clever, but it's funny.
Okay.
Yeah. Moving on. Justice League. We've talked about Justice League it's so much. People are probably angry that we're still talking about Justice League. But, fans are demanding that Warner Brothers release a Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. On Reddit, a VFX artist who has supposedly worked on the film, which we have not confirmed, says that, of course, there's an assembly cut Zack had going before he left, but that was 9 months ago. He himself has not touched or interfered on or been part of the process since March. There is no Zack Snyder cut. People like this guy are the worst, perpetrating. Okay, I'm not going to get onto everything he says here, but while we can't confirm that there is no Zack Snyder cut, it kind of gels with everything we know about the movie making process. He kind of left this project before they got to a point where they could finish it, and there's a reported 50, 60, 70 minutes of footage that were cut. The VFX did not get to a point where they finished it. Like they're not going to release a unfinished cut. If you've ever watched deleted scenes for a visual effects heavy movie, you know how bad that stuff looks without the VFX done, and they were so far away from being done that I don't think there is a cut here. But Ben Pearson has a full article on slashfilm.com detailing a bunch of scenes that were cut from the film, including a end credit scene that they've apparently had an idea for a post-credit scene that had multiple Green Lanterns appearing. So you can go to the site, and I'll link that in the show notes. You can read about that. I just don't think. I think the likelihood of us seeing a Zack Snyder cut of Justice League is just as much as us seeing a original cut of Rogue One by the original director there. So I just don't think it's going to happen. Do you guys have any opinion on if we will ever see the Zack Snyder cut?
I don't think so. And I think that fans just stop trying to co-opt charity language to get it because of that whole movement or petition, whatever, to get the Justice League Zack Snyder cut and support Justice League box office, for example. But, I think...
There's people encouraging people to go see Justice League 6 times in the theater so that Warner Brothers will make so much money that they'll release the cut. It seems so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's move on from that to Quentin Tarantino, something more serious. Quentin Tarantino is out doing some press. He talked a little bit about why he doesn't like Netflix. It seems to me like he doesn't know what Netflix is. Chris, you wrote this up for the site. What did Quentin Tarantino say?
Yeah, so Quentin Tarantino in the past has said pretty much similar things regarding Netflix, and in this quote, he confesses that he's not even on Netflix. So, like you said, Peter, I don't think he actually understands really what Netflix is, and he also even talks about how he still uses VHS tapes and he'll tape stuff off TV, which is very, very old school. Basically, what he goes into is he's saying he just doesn't really get it, and he prefers video because back in the day, video stores gave you something tangible where you would go into a video store and you would actually talk to the clerk, and the clerk would recommend something for you, and you had to commit to a movie, basically. And his criticism with Netflix seems to be it's too random. You don't really commit to anything. You don't really care what you're watching. That's pretty much what it boils down to, is what he's saying. And I obviously don't agree with him, but that's his stance.
Now, Tarantino himself was a video store clerk in LA, and that's how he got his start. When Blockbuster was going away, it was kind of, a lot of people talked about kind of the death of that kind of movie recommendations. And I know when I was a kid, I'd go into this local video store in my old hometown called Video Paradise. And, I would, ask the clerk behind the counter, which was the guy that owned the store, was this old man. And, he'd recommend all these, I want to say obscure movies. They probably aren't obscure nowadays, but for me, then they were more obscure than what I would normally watch, and it was kind of a great process. Do you guys think that, now that is gone, now that we are faced with a screen of tiles of movies and TV shows on that Netflix app, and there's no recommendation service, are we getting an inferior experience?
I don't know. I mean, I do think, Netflix, they don't have the best selection. It can't compare to, those video store days where a good video store would have quote unquote everything. Whereas Netflix, they're very, even though they have a lot of titles, they're very limited in what they can offer. I feel like the best answer to this problem is to belong to more services than Netflix. I know that's not ideal for everyone, but I belong to Filmstruck, which has a great selection of obscure titles that Netflix will never have. So I feel like if you're willing to commit to more than one service, you can get something close to that video store experience.
I think you're right with selection, but Chris, when I look at Filmstruck, I get I guess the word is overwhelmed, because there's so many movies on there that I've never heard of. Where do I even start? How do you know what to pick on there?
I would recommend you read Chris Evangelista's streaming column on slashfilm.com. It appears every other week on Thursdays, so look out for that, where I recommend films. But I know what you're saying, where it can be overwhelming. So I guess that element of what Tarantino is saying, where that physical connection, where you had a clerk who could recommend stuff, that is gone. But you have the next best thing. You have me recommending stuff on slashfilm.com.
HT, you probably grew up in a day where video stores were probably in their dying grasp as you were growing up as a teenager. I'm assuming, right? So, what are your thoughts on how we're gonna be finding movie recommendations in the future? Did you ever go to a video store clerk for movie recommendations?
First of all, I reject that assertion, but I also didn't have a sort of small town or local movie store. I just had a Blockbuster nearby. So there wasn't any of that personal intimacy. Sometimes the clerks would have a recommendation or two, but Blockbuster was incredibly limited compared to more local chains, which I was never familiar with. Because I'm young. I'm a millennial.
But Blockbuster went out of business when you were 10 years old.
No.
I know, I'm just
There was a
kidding.
Blockbuster near me, and I tried to go for a job there when I was in high school, but they didn't take people who were under 18, and by the time I was 18, it had closed, so.
So what do you think the future of movie recommendations is?
Yeah, I guess it's like Chris said, it's through what we search for in recommendations online, through online articles, through our sort of the sort of formula that Netflix has when you for suggestions whenever you watch something that says this is what you should watch next, which is limited, but there is just a giant plethora of options on the World Wide Web, as they say. So I guess like it's both more limited and more there are more things available, just because there's so many options. Sometimes it feels more limiting.
And Vanity Fair has a whole cover story on the next two Avengers films. HT, you kind of wrote this up and summarized it for the site. What did we learn from this whole thing?
So in addition to giving us a sort of sneak peek at the costumes of all the characters in Avengers Infinity War, Kevin Feige and Bob Iger gave us a hint at what the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe would look like post-Avengers 4. So Avengers 4 is supposed to be this sort of game-changing movie. We're not sure about the plot details of it or how many characters will come out alive after it, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe will be completely changed after the events of this film. And Kevin Feige described Avengers 4 as sort of the finale for the first period of the MCU, which is comprised, I think, of 3 phases now. So this is sort of a midway point too, because Feige also said, now we're 22 movies in, and after Avengers 4, there's another 20 movies on the docket that we don't really have a clue of what they are, because Marvel has up until now been very meticulous and very detailed with what movies are on their slate. But post-Avengers 4, we're not really sure, outside of the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So it's a big, wide mystery there, and it's quite exciting because this is a whole new chapter for the MCU that we don't really know what it will look like. It will probably be more cosmic, based on some of the news we've seen about Guardians of the Galaxy being a huge influence on the new phase, but yeah, this is big news for Marvel Studios. It's a pivotal turning point for the cinematic universe as we know it.
Yeah, and it should be mentioned that Ben Pearson should have an article on the site by the time you read this, kind of giving a preview of what those 20 films could be, some educated guesses. It should be mentioned, while 20 films seems like a lot, Marvel is now gearing up to do 3 films a year. So if they continue at that 3 films a year, 20 films is 6 years, which really isn't that long of a time. Or 7 years. 7 years? Yeah, 7 years. My math's off. I guess that is a long time in the movie world, but that's the same amount of times that it takes them to do, 3 Star Wars Skywalker Saga episodes. So, the bottom line here is we're going to get a lot of Marvel movies coming up, but go read Ben's article and get a sneak peek into what those could be. But lastly, let's get into our final news item, and that is about Rian Johnson. He is finally giving some quote about his new Star Wars trilogy that was announced. It doesn't reveal much, but Chris, what did he say?
Right. So a little while back, it was announced that Rian Johnson will be making a new Star Wars trilogy outside of the ongoing Skywalker saga. And what he said in the new interview was, I'm just in the very beginning of starting to come up with what the new trilogy is going to be. What makes me so excited about it is the idea of doing a new story on the big canvas of 3 movies in this world. There's just so much potential, and I can't wait to jump into it. So basically what he's saying is what excites him the most about this project is opening up the Star Wars galaxy, going beyond, the universe we've seen so far in pretty much all the films.
Now, neither of you were on that episode that we recorded when this news broke. We did an emergency podcast. We had Amy from Nerdist on. What I'm wondering is, because you guys haven't talked about this, and we were so excited when this news broke to talk about it and to geek out about this, that it didn't occur to me at that point that Rian Johnson signing on for a new Star Wars trilogy is great, because I love Rian Johnson and I love Star Wars, but it also means that we're probably not going to get non-Rian Johnson, a Rian Johnson non-Star Wars movie anytime in the next 6 or 7, 8 years. If he's directing them, which we don't know. We know he's going to direct the first one and he's going to write the others, or that's what's been announced. But let's assume he's directing. Like, that means we're not going to get another Looper. We're not going to get another Brick. We're not going to get another Brothers Bloom for, until we get that next Marvel's Infinity, whatever that is at the end of the next 20 Marvel films. That'll be the next time we see a Rian Johnson film that is not Star Wars. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that actually either, and that does bum me out a little, because I would love to see. I would love to see Rian Johnson do something else. I mean, I am excited for The Last Jedi. I am excited to see what he does with this trilogy, but I'd also would love for him to make, another Brick or a movie like that that's not set in the Star Wars universe. But I guess it really all depends on what he's going to do with that new trilogy. If he does direct all three of them, then yeah, it's going to be a while. But if he's only directing the first, there's a good chance we'll see another film of his before then. Plus, he could always make something before the first entry in that trilogy comes out, if he wants to.
So that's a good point too.
Yeah, it that does sort of put a bummer on things, but I do hope, and I hope that he doesn't have a creative burnout while he's working on the Star Wars trilogy, because a lot of these sort of visionary directors take a year off or two to work on their own personal projects and then go back to the blockbuster tentpoles to go back into it. And I hope I want to see Brick again, or another Brick. That was one of my favorite movies when it came out. So I like Rian Johnson's work, and I hope that this won't be the last we'll see of his independent films before he emerges from Star Wars.
It's just a weird dichotomy, because it's like, we want to, if you're a fan of Star Wars, you want to see good Star Wars movies from people that you trust and love. But it also means that those people that you trust and love will not be able to do original, exciting, interesting work outside of the Star Wars movie. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. It just got me thinking. If anybody has any thoughts on that, please send them to our email at peter@slashfilm.com. If you have any questions for our mailbag, send them to peter@slashfilm.com as well, with their name and general geographic location, in case we mention it on the air. HT, where can we find more of your work online?
You can find me at slashfilm.com. I'm at HTranBui on Twitter, and I have a podcast, the Millennial Falcon Podcast, on iTunes.
I'm also at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at Evangelista413.
You can find me at slashfilm. You can find me at slashfilm on Twitter. You can find this podcast published almost every weekday on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, all the popular podcast apps. We are back after a hiatus of that Thanksgiving holiday season, so there should be an episode every day this week if we can help it. And, please go to iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review, help spread the word. That helps us out quite a bit. And we will see you tomorrow.